Hello everybody and welcome back to SMAM Listens, a channel where we listen to, talk about and review music. I am back once more. Thank you so much for all of the positive comments, the views on my last video, which was part one of the reaction, which we're continuing today. I was honestly kind of surprised that there was really any audience left for my videos after taking such a massive break of, I think at this point, like over a year and a half. So, gosh, I'm really just excited that I get to do this again and that you guys are watching it and that you guys are liking it. So again, thank you so much for liking the last video, leaving comments, viewing it. If you haven't already, leave comments on pretty much any of my videos. I promise I'll read them and I promise I'll respond to most of them unless you're trolling me. Leave takes on my takes, etc, etc. Check out the last video. And in this case, you definitely need to check out the last video because this second one, this won't make as much sense if you don't. Today we are reacting to the second half of Have a Nice Life's Deathconsciousness, which is this sort of post-punk gothic rock, post-rock album that I started yesterday. It's extremely iconic. If you're an indie music fan, an experimental music fan, and you're on the internet or just part of internet music communities, you're almost guaranteed to at least have heard of this album. That was me. I'd only heard of this album and I knew one track before I started listening to it yesterday. So, that was me for the longest time. I'd heard the really best things about it. I just never got around to listening to it in full. I knew Blood Hail, which I had loved pretty much from like the moment I'd heard it maybe 1 or 2 years ago. But hadn't really listened to it, actively since then and hadn't heard anything else on the album. So it's really good to finally be able to just dig into it and check out this indie classic album. And we're going to continue on that grind with this second half, which is shorter in terms of number of tracks compared to the first half. But in terms of track lengths, well, we have a bunch of tracks instead of the 6-minute range, 5-minute, 3-minute range. And then to close out the album, we have Earthmover, which is this behemoth of an 11-minute 28 song. Which I've heard good things about. I've heard that one and Blood Hail are the two that, get a lot of the hardcore attention from the Have a Nice Life diehards. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think this side rather will be a very different experience to that first half. I've heard that it's maybe a bit heavier, maybe a bit sort of more driving and energetic compared to the first half, which was strangely very atmospheric. At least compared to what I expected this album to be and what sort of, the genres would typically tell you. Because, obviously we had some quite driving post-punk songs like Blood Hail, like the second half of Hunter on the first half, but then you also had really chilled out spacey stuff like A Quick One and Who Would Leave Their Son Out in the Sun and There Is No Food, which were both completely drum-free for at least the vast majority of the songs. And were mostly just sort of these ambient soundscapes that barely had any strong conventional Western sense of melody or of rhythm. They just sort of existed in this formless sludge that was sitting between the speakers, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't expect it from this album at all. I have read that the second half maybe has a bit more in the way of sort of harsh pummeling drums, maybe has a bit more in the way of, those occasionally quite atmospheric but also quite sharp guitars that did pop up sometimes in the first half of the album. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be more of a headbanging side, which I'm really looking forward to. If you haven't watched my first half of the reaction, do that now. None of this second half will really make sense, and I'll skip most of the preamble. Let's just get into it. So let's start with the first track on the second half is called Waiting for Black Metal Records to Come in the Mail. I talked about how they're good at their track title game on this album. They are very interesting track titles. I love A Quick One for The Eternal Worm Devours Connecticut. We also have Holy Fucking Shit 40,000, which is a hilarious title on the second half, which we'll get to. Waiting for Black Metal Records to Come in the Mail. I can't say I can relate to that, to be honest, but Not the biggest black metal expert in the world, but maybe this track might convert me. We'll see. I might be about to get hit with a black metal banger. So let's see. To start off the second half of the album, we are listening to Waiting for Black Metal Records to Come in the Mail. This is part 2 of Deathconsciousness by Have a Nice Life. Hoping for a banger. Let's go. Hit me. Might have to turn you up, actually. I turned you down before. Okay, that's eerie to start with. It's kind of a little bit creepy. Synth. I think that's a synth of some form. Move this a bit here. Still the same amount of sort of lo-fi distortion as we saw on the last half of the album. Could just be like a mellow opener, like a quick one was, maybe. We'll see. Okay. Oh shit, okay. That's peppy for this album, goddamn, okay. Pretty fast pattern. Ooh! I'm turning this up. I did not expect that, actually. I expected something heavy, but not like this. Very eerie chord progression there. I wish that the third chord was made pentatonic, because as it stands, it sounds a bit off. But I guess that's the effect. Again, I wish the drums, the vocals were a bit forward in this. It's hard to hear the melody. Nice little flanger effect on the drums. Even the vocals sound quite different on this song. They have a bit more like bite to them. Yeah, I wish it was a semitone lower, I think, that last chord. These bits are cool where it doesn't mess around with progressions and stuff. I'm a sucker when songs stay on one note like that. Whoa, okay, Jesus. Nice little synth strings in the background. Yeah, I love how repetitive this is too. Oh shit, it's about to end. Okay, I better be vigilant. Stop rocking out. Okay, yeah, I buy what that's selling. Oh, Jesus, my phone fell off my seat. I buy what that's selling. I do buy what that's selling. It was definitely an energetic song, which is what I expected to start off this second half, but it wasn't the exact kind of energetic song that I was expecting, if that makes sense. That almost felt, like I was sort of expecting something like a bit doomy and, more superficially heavy to start off that second half for some reason. I don't know why. That was just, I think from what I've read about the second half, that was more what I had in mind. But that felt almost like the bands that come to mind when I listen to that are sort of like Fugazi. I hear a big Fugazi influence on the guitar playing, like some of the single note, like driving like that. That felt very Fugazi influenced. A lot of sort of just generally like 90s post-hardcore in there, like At the Drive-In type stuff. Definitely heard some influence of that. Something about the bass and the drums felt quite Joy Division, in particular, like Unknown Pleasures sort of Joy Division. Just with that very simple, very repetitive pattern that just kept driving the song on and on and on. And look, I get that they most likely, by the sounds of it, use a drum machine on this album, because that drum tone it very much sounds like they just had they got a drum patch from online somewhere and then just like ran it through GarageBand with very heavy distortion effects on it. So or just like turned it up volume wise to it just redlined. So that was, I guess that does set it apart from sort of the more clinical feel of something like Joy Division. But yeah, just the way it churned on, the way it kept pushing the whole time, and sort of that quite bassless bass, that sort of toneless bass that again just matched the drums in lockstep and kept pushing forward. I thought that felt very post-punk, very 70s, 80s post-punk. Yeah, the vocals in the choruses had sort of almost like an emo feel to them. I don't know why I'm saying that, but I do get like a classic sort of 90s, 2000s emo feel from some of the vocals on this album so far, especially on like Blood Hail, on like Hunter, on The Big Gloom, on tracks like that. I do get that feel, and I think it's just something about the heavily reverbed vocals and sort of the upper register melodies that they were going for with very clean tone. Still, there was a bit more bite in the vocals this time than there was on the previous side, but still very, very clean toned generally. That felt sort of like the ringing male vocals trope of a lot of sort of those 2000s emo bands. So I hear a strong mix of influences in that, which is interesting for such a... I mean, it's a pretty simple song, right? It was pretty simple for the most part. The whole thing was just that... For about half of it, that repetitive which that should be a semitone lower to make it pentatonic. That would have put it into top tier, but I digress. So it was that for most of it, with some like verses, some choruses, And then in the outro, it dropped any changes and just chugged along, which I thought was fantastic. That was my favourite bit of the song, when it got rid of any of the other notes and just went straight for the. As I've said before, look, I love repetition and I love looping and I love absences of chord progressions. Like, just give me one note and the truth and I'm set, honestly. So yeah, that appealed to me a lot. I could totally lose myself in that ending bit. But yeah, no, that was generally a Take No Prisoners, really hard, really hardcore, really energetic, probably the most energetic song. In fact, that's not even probably, easily the most energetic song on this album. By far, had a fair bit of bite to it, just overall. God, I don't know what else to say. I think that started off the second half of the album really well, and I know this sort of first half, second half thing it's not fully arbitrary, but it's semi-arbitrary because it is a full album, so I need to keep that in mind. But assuming these were like two halves of the same album, which they sort of are, I mean, it's separated along vinyl discs, but they sort of are two halves of the same album. I don't know if there's any like thematic element to that or what, but yeah, there are two halves here, and but at the same time, I do need to remember that this is, meant to be a cohesive full album experience. But if that was an opener of some sort, if I'm to take it as an opener of a part of the album, I think it was super effective. I think it was Take No Prisoners, no holds barred, just coming out, roaring out of the gate, and I liked it. So the second song is called Holy Fucking Shit 40,000, which is, as I said, pretty iconic track title. I love it. It's about the same length. God, I don't think you can follow up quite a roaring track like that first track of this second half, first track of the second half, with something that tries to outdo it. I don't think you can hit it with something equally as heavy as that. So I'm assuming we'll get a bit of a mellower cut here to round things out, but I could be completely wrong. So let's try it. This is track 2 of the second half, Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. Yep, there we go. Okay, bit pop. It's like a bit pop or a chiptune song. That's very much... Okay, nice melody, nice guitar. I think my prediction was right. Yeah, the chiptune percussions is interesting. I don't know if it needed it, to be honest. I think it could have just done with that guitar, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. Very pretty. Okay. Piano is a cool little addition, but it's very musical theatre, which is not what I expected from this album. Yeah, I like that melody. Don't love it, but I like it. I like how it descends there. No, no. Okay. straight up like singer-songwriter stuff. It's crazy. Alright, there it is. There it is. Okay, wow. God. Tale of two halves, huh? God, terrible drum tone, as always. Terrible drum production. But again, that's the aesthetic. That's the aesthetic. If that kick was just had a bit more mids punch to it, it'd be so much better. It's good. Not as good as Hunter did it though, in terms of like the big drum break. I do like the wall of noise though, I appreciate that. Triplets. Whenever you want height, do triplets over a straight feel, always works. Ba 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 ba. It's funny, they can pull out really, really clean sounding instruments when they want. Oh, it's done. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it was good. That was good. I'm not really sure how cohesive it was overall, maybe. I mean, I guess that's the risk you run falling into when you have such a distinctly two-part track. Like, there are almost no similarities between that first half and that second half. Because, you had the first half with the chiptune percussion, which I don't think it needed that. I reckon it would have just been better as, like, an acoustic guitar ballad. Realistically, apart from being, I guess, quirky, like, okay, it's like a quirky, interesting element that your ear latches onto, I don't see what purpose that percussion added. So, yeah, there was that, but we had the acoustic guitar. It was very clean, it was very pretty. We had a vocal melody, which I quite liked. There weren't really any, like, single standout melodic motifs in that vocal melody at all. In the same way that, like, in Blood Hail is such a singular motif. You didn't really have that in that song as much, but I don't know. There was nothing really off kilter or abrasive in those phases at all. It was generally a pretty vocal melody. So that was alright. The song was doing mighty fine up until that point. Then we got the obligatory drum drop, and went into the the huge blown out shoegazy second half of the song that of course faded into very clean acoustic guitar outro to end things off. I think I did get filtered a little bit by some elements of that, namely the drum production. I think generally, just in general, this album is filtering me a little bit in terms of production. Like, listen, I can totally put up with lo-fi. When it works and when I think it adds to the vibe of the album, I can totally put up with lo-fi. One of my favourite albums of all time is a Throbbing Gristle album, Second Annual Report, which is one of the most lo-fi albums you will ever hear. And that's okay because it is basically just a noise album. There are no drums. There are no melodies for the overwhelming majority of that album. It's just sort of these noise, ambient, synth, and bass soundscapes with lyrics over the top. And for that purpose, that type of production works. But I think, I don't know, I don't see what having those drums sound like that actually adds to that song. Do you know what I mean? Like, I reckon there is nothing that track would have lost and an infinite amount of stuff that it would have gained if they had just put in, like, drums that sort of had body, had punch, sat in sort of the middle of the soundstage. Like the drums on Hunter was a perfect example of that. You can have all of the distortion you want. You can have that sort of extreme level of compression and the redlining and everything. But the drums still need to have body and they still need to have punch. They can't just be these like little outlines of static that happen at various points in the song. You know what I mean? Like they don't actually become solid sounding drums. They just become walls of noise. And I don't think that adds anything to the song. I think if they had drums with a bit more kick, that second half would have a lot more punch, because instead it leaves the wall of electric guitars to do the heavy lifting. And credit where it's due, those electric guitars do to an extent. They have a very sort of buzzing, droning, abrasive tone to them, and that's all right. But it's nice to have a very strong rhythm to latch on to, especially in hype moments like that. And I don't feel like I got that nearly as well in that second half as I would have liked. Plus, I mean, you can pull it out for just not being like a super cohesive thing. And again, I know what they're going for. They're going for the surprise factor. It's like, huzzah, where you sort of, we hit you with a soft singer-songwriter song, then just lead to this huge blown out outro. And I don't know, I don't feel like there was that much of an organic transition between the two. Like at least with Hunter, for example, which is the closest analog to that song, there was something very dark and very gritty going on in the first half. It was just much sparser, much slower. And when you get to the second half, which is obviously much faster and much more aggressive, it doesn't feel like it's in a totally different world to what you've heard so far. You know what I mean? And in Holy Fucking Shit 40, was it 40,000? Yeah, Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. I thought it was 10,000. Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. I don't feel that loose sense of cohesion as much between those two halves. I feel like they existed in fundamentally different worlds to one another. So yeah, that as a whole, I don't know if it worked for me that well. I think it had a lot of potential, but mainly just held back by structural issues and just the production, as always, as with a lot of sort of the worst parts of this album so far have been all on the production end of things. And look, I get to love this album. You kind of just have to accept that this album is lo-fi. Like, that's just how it is. It'd be asking for it to be, better produced is like asking apples to stop being fruit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just fundamental to its very being. That is just, it is what it is, to be a completely different, less atmospheric album without that. But that when we get quite egregious examples of really shoddy production like that, at a certain point I'm just like, yeah, that could probably be polished up. You know what I mean? So, oh well. I think the first track of this second half was much better than that. I enjoyed Waiting for Black Metal Records a lot more than I enjoyed Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. This track's probably sort of, maybe, it's above Telephony, probably. Maybe on the tier, maybe of sort of the Big Gloom, like a COB tier song, I'd say. So yeah, that's where I'd put it. Hopefully with the future we get a track I like more. This is a short one. Super, super short. Shortest on the album, I think. It's 3 minutes 48 long. God, will it be an interlude or will it be tight and punchy like Waiting for Black Metal Records was? Because it could be either, in my opinion, at this point. I guess we'll see. This is track 3 of part 2 of this album. Let's go. Okay, they're like this chip tune thing. What is the deal with that? They're really shooting for that. Ooh, okay. Okay, they're leaning into a dark wave feel. Okay, nice. Oh, like a minimal synth. Okay. They hinted at that on the last track, but they didn't go the distance. So you can hear something slipped up there just before. It was like, I think that I think that's being played manually. It slipped up ever so slightly rhythmically there. Well, it's interesting. They're like fake horn synths in the background or something. I think they are, yeah. Is this the whole song? Yeah, it's halfway through. This might be the whole song. Okay. 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 Yeah, I mean, that was not really that substantial. It was more in terms of like the interlude thing, which I talked about. So my prediction, I guess, was right on there. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best track on the album by a long shot, but I don't think it was the worst either. I mean, as a little interlude moment between maybe some sort of more emotionally intense or gravitas filled tracks. I think that had functioned perfectly well. It had this real, very martial sort of industrial feel to it, like with that very rigid that drum beat that just sort of played out again, like all of the drum beats on this album just like looped over and over in the left channel. Also with that boop 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 synth played on the off beats, definitely had a very cold synthetic feel. Elements of like as I said, like sort of minimal synth and dark wave, that sort of vibe to that. Even in down to little things like sort of that horn patch that was in the background, which I thought was quite funny. That should have been mixed for sure. I mean, I could talk about mixing things all day with this album. It sort of becomes redundant at this point. But yeah, I mean, those horns could have been mixed further to the front for sure. But yeah, with stuff like that, it definitely had a bit of like a campy. I think that's the right word for that track. It was very campy. I think knowingly campy though. Like, I don't think they were going for something super, super serious and super, super, I guess, emotionally intense or, I guess, like, super significant to the narrative of the album. Like, I don't think that song was that, if you know what I mean. It was sort of had more of the feel of, like, say, Who Would Leave Their Son Out in the Sun on the first half of the album. But yeah, it was a nice little fun thing to pop along to. I mean, it was very sort of layered in terms of guitars and stuff and bass. The different elements were pretty much indistinguishable apart from one or two that did stand out. And yeah, had a big time sort of industrial feel, like you're being like wheeled on a conveyor belt to this big fiery cauldron in the middle, or like that one scene in like, what was that animated movie? Toy Story. It's one of the Toy Story movies where like all of the toys, I don't know, I haven't watched them for ages, but like where all the toys go into the sort of big incinerator thing, or they're about to. It sort of had that feel to it. I feel like that would have played over that very nicely. That's the scenario that plays out in my head when I hear something like that. Yeah, definitely also the most electronic track on this album so far. Again, we got hints of it on Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. We only got it sort of more or less fully realised on that song. So, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting little moment. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it, though. So, what do you reckon? We just move on? So far, out of those 3 tracks, I guess the first one, Waiting for Black Metal Records, easily the best, though I don't think it compared to the highs of the first half of the album, but I think it does eclipse the other 2 in quality on this side so far. So I'm hoping we get something to pick it up a little bit from the dip that it seems to have sort of gone into in these last 3 tracks. I mean, we have Earthmover as the last one, which I know for a fact that song is pretty beloved and everyone says it's a banger of infinite proportions. So I'm excited for that one, but we also have the next 2 tracks, one of which is called Deep Deep, which I'm going to do next. It is 5 minutes 23 long. God, yeah, I'm guessing something more conventional to go off sort of an interlude-y song like The Future. So let's hear this conventional, basically a 3 minute 30 pop song, Deep Deep. I'm sure it's going to be like that. Let's go. Yeah, there, yeah. Basically Britney Spears already. I like that beat though. Okay. God, that's like Big Black or something. That's the industrial one. Shit. Alright. No. Yeah, no, turn down the compression. No, come on, guys. Ugh, that annoys me. I'm just going to pause it. Oh, that's rough, guys. Come on. Those drums are so good. They were so punchy. But as I said, they have like this ridiculous compression on all of the songs. So when another element comes in this song, it's the worst offender. When that bass sort of came in or whatever, or was a guitar or whatever, it just made the drums go quiet for a second until the guitar sort of faded out and the drums came back into the mix. And that's such a shame. They need to turn down the compression, guys. Like, come on, that just sounds shoddy. And that's not like even a hard thing to do. And I don't know why you'd intentionally choose to do that. So I can only conclude that it was just not as much effort went into doing that as I would have liked. Yeah, they can turn that compression down. Just leave the drums pummeling me, please. Not a good start. I mean, everything else is good. So instrumentally, that sounded really cool with the bass and the drums, but not liking what they did on the production end of things. But what's new? That's good. And you see here when the vocals come in, it just slightly fades the drums. Yeah, cool song if it wasn't for the production. It's so annoying. Oh, that frustrates me. Ooh, I love the synths though. I do love those synths. I do like that synth. Very gothic. Very gothic. Hear that? It's like, listen how the different levels of the snares depend on how loud the singer is singing. I've never heard something like that on a finished, really popular album like this, ever. I mean, the jangly guitar tone is great. I do like that. Now I'm sort of getting like, from this I'm getting like 2000 sort of garage rock revival or post-punk revival vibes, like Block Party or something as well. This reminds me. Even in the vocals. Like the vocal melody there, on the synth is great too. Really good song. If only it was produced by someone who knew what they were doing. Just bass. I think it might just be a really heavily strung bass. Might not even be guitar. Oh yeah, it is the you can hear that faintly. Yeah, there's guitar there as well. Yeah, okay. Listen to that. The drums just... So the drums fade out, then they come close to your face, and then fade out again. It's annoying. Okay. Okay. First of all, I will address something that I realized I forgot to address. Obviously, I am not really paying attention to the lyrics on this album. 10% because lyrics are not as important to me, admittedly, as things like melodies and chord progressions and production, stuff like that. Is about 90% because I just can't make them out. Like, it's near impossible to make out any lyrics on almost this whole album, to be honest, because the vocals are very buried in the back of the mix. Quite generally, the vocals aren't really on all but a couple of the songs the most important part of the songs, I feel. At least that's not what they're going for. So, yeah, after the fact, I will go and read into the lyrics, but on this, first listen, it does fall to the wayside a bit, and I do know that a lot of people find a lot of... I have read reviews on radio music and stuff of people that find a lot of catharsis in this album, and I do think, especially people that suffer from depression and mental health issues, and I do get that those people probably get a big amount of the catharsis out of the lyrics as well. It's just I'm not able to access that from this first listen. It's nigh on impossible. So I'll get that out of the way. So I do have kind of an incomplete view, and maybe I should be reading the Genius lyrics as I go with albums like this. But I don't know. I kind of just want to vibe. So that's the atmosphere. It's the technique that I'm going for. As for the song itself, sometimes with this album, I do feel like I'm Charlie Brown and I'm right about to kick that football, and then Lucy puts a really bad production decision into the song. Just one. There's always just one. It's never like a host of them. Just one really bad production decision. She puts it into the song and then kicks the football out from underneath me, and I end up falling flat on my face. That's the problem with that song, I think, perhaps most egregiously out of any song on this album so far. It would be so good. All of the elements are in place there for something really good. All of the elements are in place for something really good. You had those driving, pummeling drums, the boom, boom, cap, boom, 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 cap, boom. Fantastic. Right at the beginning, honestly, the best bit of the song, in my opinion, was that first 10 seconds. Just with those... really driving, super pummeling drums that were kicking my ass all over the place. That was fantastic, and I was like, okay, I'm in for something really, really amazing here. And in many ways I was, because then you got the bass, again, played with so much wanton sort of abandon, which, the passion of that was just infectious. Same with all of the guitar lines, things like that. So that was really good. The vocals were fine. The chorus was fine. I liked the little sort of string synth melody that played at points during the song. It really just felt like this huge, rollicking, heavy, aggressive, energetic song like the first track of this side was to it. Definitely, they felt like two peas in the same pod, but honestly, this one felt even more punishing, even more walloping. I said during the song that it did remind me of some industrial rock songs from there are a lot of touch points, I think, with this album, and on that song I do hear a lot of Big Black, sort of that Steve Albini sound. Just the general feel of the song, the general ethos that they were going for with the drums and with the bass and everything like that. So I hear a bit of that, and even maybe sort of no wave influences on that, a little bit of 80s Swans, sort of The Greed or what's the other one? Greed and Holy Money. It was that sort of a Greed, Holy Money era type sound. So I definitely hear that. I thought that was great because I do like all of those influences, especially Swans. So yeah, all of the elements were in place there. And you're on most albums, you'd be okay, they can't screw anything up on the production end that badly to ruin everything. But unfortunately, they just... look, I get that they're probably inexperienced on this one, and they're probably maybe recording even into GarageBand or something is the vibe I'm getting. And, I get that those softwares... Especially, I mean, first of all, like if you're putting into GarageBand or something, like it's a good software for beginners. It's not a good software for creating like releasable albums, especially when they're quite layered and high production in theory, like this one is. So you have that, but also you have people that don't really, I guess, know how to use it, possibly. I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong and that's intentional. But the decision to put that really heavy compressor on the song, that I don't know if that doesn't sound like it's on any of the other songs on this, because like on Blood Hail or something on Hunter, the levels of the drums and all of the other instruments, they sound consistent, volume-wise, as the other, things are added in. But on that track, it was just like, yeah, oh my god, every time like some new element came in that was quite loud, the drums just like go down in the mix, way, way down, and lose all of their punch, and you have to wait for that element to disappear before they go up to their full might. And sometimes that would even happen as in the beginning, in like the course of a bar or something. It'd like, the bar would start with the drums being quiet, and then it'd get a peak, then quiet, then a peak again. And that was really so frustrating to me. That was so frustrating to me. Because that doesn't feel intentional, and that, like, I guess there is a world where you can make an argument where, like, the bodiless drum sounds on some of these songs might add to the atmosphere, but that doesn't add to anything. And in my opinion, it might be you might be sitting there and thinking that's kind of a little bit of a nitpick, a sort of unnecessary nitpick to catch this album out on. But it just sounds weird to me, guys. It just sounds janky. It's so funny too, because I don't actually listen to that many new albums on a day-to-day basis, because I try to like sit with older ones and just absorb them before I move on to newer ones. But it's so funny, that exact problem, and that problem almost never happens on albums. Like, most of the time, producers just sort that out right off the bat. That exact problem was on an album I listened to the other day, an album called Beat by Bowery Electric. Sort of like a trip-hop shoegaze album. And the first track on that album had exactly the same problem, with a beat that started off really quietly because of some vinyl static that was over the top, and then towards the end of a bar, it just got louder. And I didn't think this would be common enough to call it like a pet peeve in music, but apparently that is a valid pet peeve in music, because it totally takes me out of it. Like, it makes me stop sort of grooving along as much as I'd like to, and it removes a strong sense of anchor that the rhythm would otherwise have. Oh, it's such a shame, because that had so much potential to be a good song, and it is a good song still, but if that one element was fixed, that would be up there with the best couple of tracks on the first half, or easily. I genuinely think this album would be much better if it was actually taken in with a genuine good producer and fixed up a little bit. Not to remove all of the character. Like, for example, Blood Hail, those really crunchy, distorted drums and crunchy, distorted bass, that's perfect. Like, nothing needs to be changed on that song. Nothing needs to be changed on Hunter. Nothing needs to be changed on what's the final song of the first half called again? That's bad that I'm forgetting that. There is no food. Nothing needs to be changed on that. Nothing needs to be changed on Waiting for Black Metal Records to come in the mail. It's just some of these songs that could have little touch-ups that would honestly add like a point or two out of 10 for me to this album. Maybe on further listens I'll be able to overlook that, but for now, no. For now, though. But also for now, I think I'm going to move on to the next track and hope, beyond hope, that suddenly this becomes a beautifully produced, crystal clear album. Like Blood Hail. Basically like Blood Hail. Second last track is called I Don't Love. Neither, fam. Especially when it comes to some of these songs. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, guys. That was a joke. It's 6 minutes 06 long. I'm just going to go with it. Fingers crossed for a banger. Let's go. Hit me, boys. Hit me, bros. Hit me, brothers. Okay. So I'm guessing. Okay. One voice is one of the members, and the other voice is another. Because I read that it was two guys. Where's the hip hop, like? You know, this album would be so much better if they just like put on some trap beats. I reckon. Like, So I had to take a minute or 10 to collect myself there. Second best song on the album, maybe. I think that's above Hunter. I think that one was above Hunter. When it just, I mean, I'm sure that is probably like an iconic moment, and you guys watching this were like, ha ha ha, he's gonna get jump scared. Look at him dissing the beginning of this song. He's gonna get jump scared by this huge drop. Well, I mean, you got your money's worth. That was incredible. Really amazing song. Like, when that drop came in, I was just blasted clean off the face of the earth. Like the drop in Hunter, it had the same sort of feel as that, but almost even more intense. I don't know why. I think it was just those huge shoegazy walls of guitar in that one that just... Man, they obliterated me. They obliterated me, guys. Oh God, I don't even know where to start. The vocal melodies on that were probably the best since Blood Hail. That little chorus, and then also the vocal melody in the outro, just phenomenal. Really phenomenal. I loved them so much. The drums sounded fine because they were buried under such a thick wall of buzzing guitars, and the guitars sounded super chunky, which I don't know, it created this massive insurmountable glacial wall of noise that I thought couldn't have been done better, really. That was a case in which like the production totally added to it, because it made it like this, instead of something really like in your face, present and sharp, that very lo-fi production made it into sort of this blurry, misty, sort of like slow-moving apocalypse of a song. I would not have had it any other way, honestly. I was totally entranced, totally hypnotized by that, by the bulk of that song. Oh my God. That was so much better than anything else on this side. Like, clears everything else on this side, blows every other song on this side out of the water. It even blows Waiting for Black Metal Records out of the water. Oh man, that was phenomenal. I mean, you saw me, right? You saw, like, as I said in a past video, music is this real physical, visceral thing to me. Like, you need to react to it by expressing yourself physically, and that one just took over me and hypnotized me unlike any other song on this album. Man, oh man, that was good. It's almost like with the really incredible songs like that, I almost have less to say. It was simple. It was a very simple song. It was all about that huge wall of sound. There weren't many elements to it on the grand analysis, in the final analysis, despite being such a chunky and such a dense and suffocating, I think is the word I'm looking for, such a suffocating song on an already pretty suffocating album. But there weren't that many elements to it. There was the guitar, there was those drums which sort of stayed in the background that time. They weren't in the forefront at all. What else? There was the vocals, there was some bass in there. There wasn't much though. It was the guitar took total center stage on that song, and I would not have had it any other way. It didn't really have the same angular punchiness as, I guess, Deep and Waiting for Black Metal Records, but it had more of this overwhelming, crushing feel that you get from the best shoegaze songs, or like the best like post-metal songs or atmospheric black metal songs. Almost reminded me of a couple moments on if you've heard of Weighing Souls with Sand by the Angelic Process. Very similar feel. I doubt there is an influence if they're into black metal and stuff, but if there is, great, but it'd be unlikely there was an influence because that album's pretty obscure. And I don't know if it was even out by the time the Weighing Souls of Sand was out by the time that this one was released. But they have the same, actually quite similar in a lot of ways. Sequence drums, upper register vocals that were quite melodic, and again heavy, huge, layered, catastrophic walls of buzzsaw guitar. I love both, but I love this more than anything on that album, that's for sure. Wow! Oh my God, that was great. God, I'm so pumped to move it. How is the last track better? How do people like the last track better than that? That's unless we're getting something truly incredible on Earthmover, I don't think it'll be able to beat I Don't Love. Like, come on, seriously. Listen to I Don't Love again and tell me that anything on this album beats that. I guess except for Blood Hail is the one exception I'll make, because that's sort of an old nostalgic favourite. But I guess we're going to try it out. So, oh my god, again, nothing will top that, but we're going into the final track. It's called Earthmover. It's 12 minutes long, so there's a lot of quantity, and hopefully we have the quality to match that. Fingers crossed, but good luck. This is Earthmover. Good fucking luck. Can't beat that shit. Serious? Trying to punk me? Is this a joke? Where's the song? Is it just silent? Okay, there it is. Okay. Very clean guitar. Ooh. You can hear the distortion. I swear this was made in GarageBand or something. Jesus! Okay. Jump scare fucking central on this half of the album. That's fitting. That's very fitting. I like that little keyboard. And I do like the hi-hat as well. Very subtle thing, but that sizzling hi-hats, quite nice. It's quite nice. This one feels more palatial than anything on the side so far. It doesn't have much of an identity. Production's nice, drums are nice, guitar's nice. Again, very palatial. Major key, which is interesting. And it doesn't, the vocal melody doesn't resolve to the tonic at the end. Notice it stays down there, she got but it doesn't. I get why it's called Earthmover. It does feel very slow, calculated, but very huge. Very, I keep going back to that word, very palatial, this song. Anthemic, palatial so far. Grandiose, that sort of thing. I like that hi-hat a lot. Sometimes the subtle little things like that can really draw me into a song. I do like that hi-hat. Okay. I think the vocals are a bit more searching on this song. They don't sound as carefully considered as I guess Bloodhail or the previous track. What was it called? I Don't Whatever. That's bad that I've already forgotten it, but I Don't Love, the amazing one. Yeah, a bit less carefully considered, I'd say. Okay. Nice. That guitar tone was a bit weird, but I like this, whatever they're doing. Ooh. Ooh. Not as like entranced by it as I was by I Don't Love, but it's good. Very driving. Funny, you can hear vocals very far in the background. They're very, very far in the background. They're there, you just don't hear them much. Nice, smooth. Well done. of like sort of Godspeed You Black Emperor-esque or something about this. 10 bucks says this will end really abruptly at the end. We'll just keep going and it'll go off. 10 bucks. Watch this. I know how this... Huh? Okay, no, I was wrong. Sort of wrong, semi-wrong. And it's not going to autoplay? Yep. Will it not autoplay? Yes, thank you. Okay, that's the album. Done, huh? Okay, so I guess I'll start. Here's what I'll do. I'll start with, because I did talk about sort of my impressions in the first half of the album a little bit, but I guess I'll start with that song, then zoom out to this half of the album, then talk about the album as a whole. That song was good. Strangely, it didn't really wow me as much as I guess certainly as much as I Don't Love. What's it called? I Don't Love? Yeah, I Don't Love. God, I'm still forgetting it. I'll double check that because I don't want to fuck this up. I Don't Love. Didn't really have the same effect on me as something like I Don't Love did. I don't know why though. I guess the textures in I Don't Love were even more overwhelmingly huge. And I think that that big drop into the heavy bit was quite well executed on I Don't Love. A bit more surprising than some of the ones on this. So yeah, I wouldn't say it had the same effect on me, like the same instant love that I had with I Don't Love, ironically. But it was still good. It was still really good. Sort of driving, nice textured passages there. Some quieter bits, some heavier bits, some bits with sort of, untreated electric guitar. Some bits with heavily treated electric guitar with drums that actually sound fairly competently produced, which is nice. No real vocal melodies that just hit me that much on that song. As I said, I don't feel like the vocal melodies on that one were as carefully considered as on something like Blood Hail, for instance. I actually find myself with not that much to say about that one. It had multiple parts. It did build up with that meow, meow, meow thing that did kind of remind me of like some of the upper register guitar parts on like a Godspeed You Black Emperor album, especially like a later one like Melodic or a song like Melodic or like Boss's Hang, something like that. So I do hear a bit of that. Again, of course, that came after the fact, but that's I do hear the same thing that I hear on in this. So there's that. And what else? It just didn't really wow me as much as the other songs, I think. The length, it wasn't a bore at all. The length sort of went really quickly, which I did appreciate. Yeah, God, I found myself with little to say. Definitely, one of the most sort of post-rock songs on the album. And it was all about the rhythm and about the textures, not very much melody, but you can say that about, to be honest, a lot of this album, with a couple notable exceptions. So, yeah, I think it was an effective enough closer. It wasn't nearly my favourite song on the album, for sure not. But it was good. It was an effective enough closer. So, yeah, that was Earthmover. Definitely not on the tier of the best songs though, for sure. So as for this half of the album as a whole, a lot heavier than the first half. Pretty much every song had at least some sort of really heavy moment or element. Even kind of The Future to an extent did, with sort of the wall of noise that started to accumulate towards the end. But yeah, you had a very, probably the most sort of traditional post-punk song on the album, in Waiting for Black Metal Records. You had Holy Fucking Shit 40,000, which started as like an acoustic little paean and then ended as this huge wall of noise. The Future, which I talked about, more sort of an industrial feel, martial rhythms with different layers, adding some harmonic, some melodic interest to the song. You had Deep Deep, which, again, very driving. This one a little bit more industrial rock and no wave-esque, with that huge kick drum dominated churning drum beat. Obviously there were production problems with that song a little bit, but the song at its core was really good. I Don't Love, which was just, I mean, I've talked about it enough. Like, you get the picture. Fantastic, fantastic song. As heavy can get, probably the heaviest moment on the album. And then you had Earthmover, which was a little bit more, maybe I'd say reserved, maybe a bit more subdued than I Don't Love was. Or definitely than Deep Deep was, for instance. But on the whole, though, it was still heavy like most of these songs were. In fact, every song except maybe The Future, even though that had some heavy elements, was a pretty loud and aggressive, maybe aggressive is the wrong word, but definitely a loud and abrasive song. So that put it in sharp contrast with the first half. But I actually don't know which half I liked more on the whole, to be honest. Because, like, as I said, they were definitely different beasts. The first half had a lot more unambiguously quiet and pretty moments, like the first track, obviously, a quick one for The Eternal Worm Devours Connecticut. And then the last two songs on that half of the album, which, I mean, the first of those last two was basically like an Americana-flecked folk song, which was very, very funny to me, considering what we just heard on the album. And then the last one was this glacial sort of post-metal-esque song with huge, chunky, very slow-moving guitar chords, lathered in distortion, unlike almost anything I've heard outside of a straight, drone metal album or a post-metal album. But yeah, on the whole, I'd say that song was more of sort of a meditative, quiet relative to this album, if you know what I mean. More, I guess meditative is probably the only word I'll use to describe it with. And then you went into the second half, which had more straight-ahead post-punk moments, more straight-ahead shoegaze moments. Definitely a tale of two halves. I might say overall I appreciated the first half a bit more, and I only say that because, first of all, it had Blood Hail, which is still probably my favourite track on this album, so there's your spoiler. Blood Hail is still my favourite track, which makes me a basic bitch, I know, but it's true. It's true. Blood Hail, phenomenal. Vocal melody, amazing. Production, amazing. Bass line, really, really great. Everything about it, just top-notch. But it also had Hunter, which sort of messes around a bit in the first half, then goes quiet, and then the big boom, boom, like drum rhythm comes in, and my head is knocked clean off my shoulders, and I fall in love with the song. And that one I have re-listened to actually quite a few times since, even more than Blood Hail, in like the 24 hours between me finishing the last reaction and me finishing this one. And yeah, it just gets better every single time. But also, like, the variety. So I do like that there was a mix between those sort of ostensibly bangers, those banger songs, with the quieter moments, like The Eternal Worm, like, what was the second last song called in the first half again? They're hard to remember, some of these titles. Yeah, Who Would Leave Their Son Out in the Sun, that's right. It did have Telephony too, but we'll ignore Telephony. Telephony's the worst song on the album, for sure. For absolute sure. Worst song on the album. The mastering on that is just rough. Really, really rough. That's something like on what's it called? On Deep Deep. Something like the problem I have with Deep Deep, where it's just like a production / mixing / mastering decision where it does not add to the atmosphere of the album. Like, say, Blown Out Drums does in most of the cases. It does not add to the album. It just takes away from it and makes it sound kind of amateur hour more than it should be. So yeah, that speaks to one of my main criticisms with this album. I have a soft spot for lo-fi production, and in a lot of places it works on this album, but there are places where there are moments where it's just like, that could be smoothed out and nothing of value would be lost. And I guess just generally, if you wanted me to really stretch for one of the other criticisms I do have is, like, this particular brand of lo-fi-ness does sound very digital. Like, it's not that sort of 70s or 80s or 90s, like, 8-track recorder, sort of tape analog lo-fi feel where there's, like, you know, it's like background hiss and it sounds very earthy, sounds very, like, there's, you know, lots of bass, but it also sounds like, almost like sepia toned is the best way to describe it. Like, it sounds like an old recording, ostensibly, and you can hear it's an old recording. And there is a very much charming aspect to that, in my opinion. But this, you can tell, this is lo-fi in an entirely different way. This is lo-fi in... I mean, I could be completely wrong. They might have recorded this to tape, but I seriously doubt it, given, you know, how obscure they were at the time. You can definitely tell this is lo-fi more in a digital sense, where it's like lo-fi from, first of all, having to put all of these tracks in some shitty DAW, probably GarageBand or something like that, which, again, perfectly versatile platform, but if you don't use it well, it sounds really bad. And in some of these cases, it sounded really bad. So it sounded like that sort of lo-fi, yeah, in the sense that they put it in GarageBand or something, turned all of the dials up to 11 and exported the first thing that came out without bothering to master it much, and then probably saved it in like MP3 or something, because a lot of the frequencies seemed lost, especially the bass. There were some, and you can tell that by, like, there were some moments of really super low end bass, but it's sort of that middle region that there wasn't that much of. Even down to something like that sort of overblown drum sound, very much a product of perhaps, I think in that case, probably intentional choices in a digital workspace. Like, that's something you get by exporting something way over the limit into MP3 and then just blowing it all out. So yeah, that very clearly digital sort of lo-fi isn't nearly as charming or endearing, I'd say, as the lo-fi you get on like a Throbbing Gristle album, or like, you know, one of those 80s sort of minimal synth albums. It's an entirely different animal, and there is an argument that I would generally subscribe to that does take away from the album on the whole, while individual production decisions that they choose, like, again, the crunchy drums, some of the big walls of noise on especially the second half of the album, do add to it on the whole. So, Deathconsciousness as a whole, I would say this is, on first listen, just hear me out, this is first listen, 6 or 7 out of 10 album. Basically, the Cliff's Notes version of why I give it that rating is extremely high highs. Like, Blood Hail, phenomenal. Hunter, phenomenal. I Don't Love, phenomenal. Even some of the songs like Waiting for Black Metal Records, In a Different Universe, Deep Deep, probably, where it was produced better. And something too like Earthmover too was quite nice overall. All of those very high highs. They were the makings of a really fantastic album. There were lows in there. There was Telephony, which I thought was just I'm not going to qualify it. It was a dud. It was a dud overall. I didn't hate it, I would say, but it was a dud. Like, come on. And you had that. You had The Future, which was alright, didn't really go anywhere that much. You had Holy Fucking Shit 40,000, which I thought was sort of two interesting songs that really shouldn't have been conjoined together. And I don't know why that didn't work as much as when that sort of same trope was used elsewhere in the album, but it really didn't work. So yeah, you had a mix of some good songs, some bad songs. What brings it down from maybe like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 for sure is some of the production elements. Really, if they pulled a Twin Fantasy on this and just got back in the studio and just recorded some elements, not everything, not a total rewrite, just some elements differently, you would have a much, much better album on your hands. But I mean, there are some songs that I think I'll barely be able to listen to just because of some of the wonky production decisions, and the poster boy of that, the poster child, is Deep Deep, but there are other ones. So I can't comment on the lyrics. Obviously, they're hard to make out. But the vocal melodies in and of themselves weren't, amazing on most of the songs. But not all, but most of the songs. So yeah, who cares? And overall, yeah, I liked it. I see why people like it a lot more than I do. I just, as I've said a million times in these videos, I think I did get filtered a little bit by some of those production decisions. I really did, and my throbbing gristle loving ass is deeply ashamed right now. And that'll do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this part 2. Hit the like, turn on the bell, subscribe, and please, please, please comment. I'll read and respond to just about every single one. Let me know any albums you'd like me to react to. Let me know any feedback you have. And just generally, if you like this channel, share it to friends, recommend it wherever you can. I get a kick out of making these videos. I hope you get a kick out of watching them. I probably won't be uploading to the same, huge sort of backbreaking schedule that I was pre-hiatus. But I will be uploading, again, probably once a week or once every 2 weeks. I'd say, at minimum. So, yeah, expect that. But until next time, all I have to say is, I'm SMAM Listens, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.